Alright, I'm back with another knife safari. I have once again visited the state surplus store in Austin, Texas, and come home with an assortment of pocket knives. These are knives that were surrendered to TSA at airports in Texas, and that subsequently ended up for sale in the state surplus store. And I dug through what they had to offer and picked out a few things to buy. I think I did pretty well. A couple of things here might not have done as well with, but I'll go through and show you what I bought, what I paid for it, what it is, and what I might do with it. Um, okay, so let's uh, let's start with this big one. This is a Gerber. The model of this is the Sumo, and this was the first Gerber that I have seen in the wild with Gerber's, what they call this, the pivot lock. It is their take on the uh, axis lock. Uh, Benchmade had a patent on that style of lock with this sort of sliding crossbar. Uh, and the patent expired, and so now there are several different manufacturers making versions of this lock design, and Gerber has entered that fray. Um, I knew that they had a couple of models out with this design. I saw this one. It was marked $15. It was in a bin with some other miscellaneous knives for $15. Uh, it looked basically new. I mean, look at the stonewash finish on that blade. There's no scratches really. Um, G10 handle, anodized blue liners, and blue spacers here, standoffs. Um, and the action on it seems to be pretty smooth. Um, and I think I kind of confused this with the Cedulo or the Cedulo, um, which is another recent release Gerber knife model that also has their pivot lock. And that knife goes for close to $100. And that's partly because it's made with a premium blade steel. It's made with CPM S30V, which is good particle metallurgy, well balanced blade steel that was designed specifically for use in small knives, to give good edge retention, decent toughness, and good corrosion resistance. This is not the Cedulo. This is the Sumo, which is it has the same locking mechanism on it and has nice handles. These are G10 black and white handles. But the blade steel on this is not that nice. S30V. This is 7CR17 MOV, which is, a budget steel that does not hold an edge particularly well. You can sharpen it to a nice, nice sharp edge, but it won't last. You'll be resharpening it again before too long. It's appropriately tough. You could do some heavy work with it. You just dull out your blade pretty quickly. Depending on what you're doing, that might not matter. That might be fine. It's not difficult to resharpen a knife, but it might be kind of a pain if you need to do it every 10 minutes and you're going to be using your knife all day long. Um, this would not be a good knife for breaking down a mountain of cardboard because it would get dull. You'd have to keep resharpening it. But it could be good for other tasks. It does have a full flat grind, and it's a pretty tall blade. So it should have pretty good efficiency in terms of cutting. So in the geometry here is in the right, uh, it's the right geometry to give you a good cutting performance, but the blade steel is not really up to the task. Um, Even though I have that complaint about it, it's still a nearly new knife with a nice, comfortable handle. It's a 3.8-inch blade. That is a monster blade. Um, and, as an EDC knife, could be okay if you want to carry something that big in your pocket. They're not all that expensive new. They're a little over 40 bucks, I think. Um, and yeah, it was 15 for me at the surplus store. So, eh, you know, not too bad, but not really awesome either. Um, the thing that has probably caught your attention if you are a knife fanatic is this Benchmade. This is the Benchmade Bailout in M4 steel, CPM M4, uh, with aluminum handles, a glass breaker on the lanyard attachment here on the butt of the knife, and this has again that crossbar style lock. This is the original Benchmade Axis lock, where that lock design became famously desirable. Yeah, so this is a current production knife. This one obviously has been used some. It's got pocket wear and it's got a little bit of blade wear. Uh, it does have a few spots of rust uh, on the tip there, which will happen with M4. M4 is not a stainless steel. It is a particle metallurgy, very hard, very tough steel. But what it compromises in order to achieve hardness and toughness is stain resistance. Um, and this is a coated blade to help prevent rust, but obviously the edges, the sharpened edges, can't be coated. So that's where you're going to see a little bit of rust. It's not a big deal. When I sharpen it, it'll sharpen right through that rust spot and it'll be clean edge again. There's a little nick there, not a big deal. Um, and the action on this is fine. I've tightened it up a little bit because there was a little bit of blade play in it when I got it. As always, I have cleaned all of these off with 91% alcohol, 91% rubbing alcohol to disinfect them. But I have not, I just got these today, so I have not disassembled them and, tuned them up and cleaned out the interior parts and all that. But I know that this is a knife that I like because I already had one. This is one that I also got from the state surplus store, but it's in better shape. This one was 90 bucks, which is, pretty reasonable considering that they retail for over 230, this model. And I was not sure if I wanted to keep it or sell it. I mean, I could, since I bought it for 90, I could definitely sell it and make a little bit of money off of it, selling it on eBay or selling it to, another knife fanatic. But yeah, I mean, I kind of like it, kind of want to use it. So when I saw another one today for 70 bucks, well, that kind of eliminates the have your cake or eat it question, right? So I can keep one of these and sell one. I'll probably sell the one that's in better condition, because if I'm going to be keeping it, it'll be as a user. And no matter what condition it starts off in, it's going to end up looking more like this. So whatever. Uh, very thin, very light knife, excellent steel. Um, Glass breaker is not something I'll probably use, and it does kind of poke you sometimes. I mean, it's not real sharp, but it can be uncomfortable. I might replace this with just a regular backspacer that doesn't have a glass breaker in it. But yeah, it's not an urgent concern. But yeah, I think for $70, I think that's pretty good deal. And you know, I can sell this one and you know, probably end up coming out ahead. Um, the one next to it here with the crazy blade shape is a Boker Plus. This model is the Baby Bat. There was one a little bit bigger than this. This is 3 1/8 inches long. There was one that was like 3 3/8 or 3 1/2 or something like that. That was the original Boker Plus Bat model. The last time I showed a hawkbill on one of these videos, I poked myself with it. You know, it wasn't a bad cut, but I got a little poke. And that's because I'm looking at this thing through a screen instead of looking at it in person. So the perspective is a little magnified, and you know, sense of depth is a little disorient. You know, a little bit off because of that. So I'm going to try not to repeat that mistake today. But yeah, hawkbill, you know, hawkbill flipper with thumb studs, so you can open it either with a flipper or with the thumb studs. And of course, it has this kind of crazy. I mean, that's the reason it's called a bat. Is it's sort of shaped like a bat wing. These sort of giant scallops that are hollow ground out of that blade edge. It gives you a little bit more linear edge overall. Uh, I wouldn't want to try and sharpen this on a sharpening stone, but on a ceramic rod, it should be fine. And you know, it's not in bad shape at all, so it doesn't need to be like reground. It just needs to be honed. Um, and actually, the Baby Bat model, despite being a little bit smaller, is preferable because it is 440C stainless steel, whereas the Bat, the original Bat model, was 8CR13 MOV, which is not as good as 440C in most regards. Right? 440C will take an edge better and hold an edge better longer. This looks almost like carbon fiber or some kind of weird micarta or something, but it's G10, and it's like peel plied G10 that's been sanded down smooth. I mean, that's the way it was designed and sold. It wasn't like a modification or anything that somebody did. Um, so you know, it's kind of a little bit unique. I'm not a huge hawkbill fan anyway, but this knife I found. I was digging through the $3 bin at the state surplus store, and I found this in there. And I found one other thing in that $3 bin. Saw that little Civivi logo on the pivot and grabbed this. You know, I was digging around in the bottom of that bin with my cut-resistant gloves, getting the stuff that had kind of, especially the smaller stuff like this, that had made its way down to the bottom of the bin. This is a collaboration between Ferrum Forge. That's what that FF design logo there is, between Ferrum Forge and Civivi, and this is the Odium, which is sort of a budget version of the Malice knife that Ferrum Forge designed. With, you know, I mean, the Malice was in like M390 in titanium, and it was bigger. The Odium is smaller. It's in D2 and G10, and it's a liner lock instead of a frame lock. Uh, it's really nicely contoured. It's like chamfered, you know. It's actually it's a it feels better than a lot of Civivi knives that are just sort of flat slabs of G10. Um, you know, it opens either with the slot, finger slot there, or with a flipper. It's on. Sorry about the oil there. I did put a few drops of CLP on these after I disinfected them with alcohol. That needs to be kind of wiped up with a rag, but I'll do that off camera. Um, what was I going to say about this one? Yeah, it's a smaller knife. These go for $52 new. Um, you know, it's got this finger choil up here. They've sacrificed some of what could be edge length, right? Um, in order to provide that finger choil, but that makes it a really, you know, controllable blade. You can get in and do some fine detail cutting, or you can hold it back here and have a little more reach. It's not, if you do that, you're only going to get a couple or three fingers on there, unless you have really small hands. But you know, if you choke up and use that choil, you know, I have medium sized hand. Well, I wear a large or extra large glove, which, you know, just means I have sort of average sized hands. Um, and yeah, I get a full 4 finger grip on there if I use the finger choil. And yeah, this is just a nice little knife, and it was in the $3 bin. So when I was checking out, you know, I went up to the counter and I laid out what I got, and I was like, well, these were in the $3 bin, and they looked at them and they were like, that was a mistake. Those should not be in the $3 bin. Um, so they said, well, we probably should have put them in the $15 bin, or marked them individually for like $20 a piece or something. But we'll let you get them for $8 each. And I didn't really. I mean, that's still perfectly reasonable. I wish they'd, you know, I mean, if they put it in a $3 bin, I wish they'd honor that and sell it at $3. But then again, you know, people can move stuff around in the store and things can end up in the wrong bins. I don't think that's what happened in this case. I think they just made a mistake. But yeah, $8 a piece for these, not bad. This Boker Plus is discontinued, but it was 40 something bucks. You know, it was like $45 or something like that when it was available. And this is still in the catalog, still available in some stores. It's an older model. It might not be in the catalog too much longer. I'm not sure. Um, but yeah, it's listed right now for 52 street price in most places. So yeah, $8. Okay. So we got our Civivi and our Boker. A few Spydercos here. An H1 Salt. H1 is being discontinued. It's still in production. You know, you can still buy H1 knives brand new from Spyderco and from retailers that carry Spyderco products. But the manufacturer is going to stop supplying it, and they're going to come up with a different formulation that's being called H2, which Spyderco says is going to have a little bit better edge retention than H1, which would be welcome because H1 edge retention kind of sucks. I don't know if we need an H2 or an H1 anymore, given that there's LC200N and MagnaCut, which are both nearly as impervious to rust. I mean, H1 is the most rust-resistant knife steel you're going to find. and it's slightly, has slightly better corrosion resistance than LC200N and MagnaCut. But in every other regard, it's a much less desirable steel than either LC200N or MagnaCut, because those both hold an edge a lot better, and uh, you know, they sharpen up well. I mean, I guess H1 is probably a little tougher technically, right? You're more likely to roll the edge than chip it, but yeah, that the edge retention on H1 it just kind of sucks. Which is why, you know, a lot of times you'll see H1 blades fully serrated, right? Because even if it gets dull, it's still going to have, you're still going to be able to saw through things and at least, cut rope or, gut a fish or something like that if you need to, even when it gets dull. Uh, but, serrations are kind of a chore to sharpen. Um, so that has compromises too. But yeah, this Dragonfly was plain edge. With the H1, the Dragonfly 2 Salt model of the H1, which comes in three styles. It comes in fully serrated, plain edge, and hawkbill. I think the hawkbill only comes serrated. Um, this is just a saber height grind. It's a flat grind. It doesn't go all the way up um, like a regular VG10 plain edge Dragonfly would be flat ground, right? See where the grind line stops on the H1. They don't have a full flat grind version of the H1 Salt, the Dragonfly 2 Salt. Uh, so it's a little different than your other Dragonflies. Um, but yeah, I mean this like that Civivi Odium. It has a finger choil. It sacrifices some of the edge length in order to provide a finger choil up there, but that's actually pretty great because it's still a decent amount of edge for a lot of tasks. Um, and it's you got a full four finger grip on a small lock back knife. So yeah, this was $35, I think, and it's in really good shape. I don't think it's been used much at all. Even the pocket clip is pretty clean, so it hasn't even really been carried that much. Those go new for about $80. Yeah. Um, so yeah, 35 is what I paid for it. Seems reasonable. Um, what else do I have here? Two more Spydercos. Um, this is probably what I was most excited about finding today. Uh, these are just little Spyderco Manbug knives, but they are in fancy steels. We've got one in ZDP 189, which is a super steel from Hitachi. This model has been discontinued for a while. The Spyderco, I think, right now only makes one knife that's currently still in their catalog that's in ZDP 189. They have made a few different models with that steel over the years. The Manbug has been discontinued for a while. When it was available, it was 65. Um, but I think if it were still being produced and offered now, they'd be asking more for it than 65 due to inflation and price increases and stuff. Sort of the equivalent things that are still in production are more expensive than that. Case in point, this is the Manbug in K390. Um, this still is in production, and these go for about, what, like 80? Yeah, 70, 78. $78 for the Manbug in K390. K390 is also a particle metallurgy super steel. Um, It has excellent edge retention and good toughness. It's not truly stain resistant. This one does have some spots on it already, but you know, it doesn't look like it's been used all that much. And I got these for $15 each. And I'm tickled. Now, if you have watched some other videos on my channel, you might be saying, "Hey, didn't you already show us something like that?" Well, yeah, I did. But no, I'm not. I'm not recycling stuff. I'm not showing you the same stuff again. I previously found a ladybug in K390, and today I found a manbug in K390 at the surplus store. If you're not familiar with the difference, they're similar, but they're not identical. The shape of the blade is a little different. The length is about the same. It's not really appreciably different, but where you can really tell the difference is you know, where the blade meets the handle. On the ladybug, it's a much narrower intersection around that pivot and the ricasso. Look how much wider or taller the ricasso is on the Manbug, right? So that's going to give you a little bit more strength, a little bit more to hold on to. And then the belly is also a little different, right? This is more of an acute tip. And this is a little bit more of a gradual belly. So, and yeah, you might also have, you know, if you if you've been paying attention to my videos, you might also have seen me mention ZDP 189 before. I previously bought a Dragonfly, also from the state surplus store in ZDP 189, which I got at a pretty good bargain. That was like 35 or 40 bucks, something like that. I think 35, which is a hell of a deal for, you know, an absolutely phenomenal super steel. This is much higher performance than VG10, which is what most Dragonflies are made out of. But no, it's not. I'm not reusing the same thing. This was the previous ZDP 189, and this is today's ZDP 189 blade. So, I don't know, maybe I'll end up with the whole set eventually. I was pretty pleased to find that. All right, this is probably the least special knife in the batch today. This is a very common little Gerber. The model of this is the Ultralight LST, which normally sells for 22 bucks. It's made of 420 HC steel. You know, it's a small little blade, lock back, nylon handles. This is $1 at the state surplus store. And, you know, I have mentioned before, I have a kid in Cub Scouts. He has already earned his Whittling Chit, the achievement where you learn some basic knife skills and, you know, earn the permission to use a pocket knife for some craft projects in Scouts. But there are other Scouts I've also taught those knife skills too as a den leader, and you know, I have given away some small lockback pocket knives to Scouts when their parents say it's okay for them. So I'm you know, this is the ideal kind of knife for that sort of thing. You know, it's got a lock on it, so it's got some safety against accidentally closing on your fingers. You know, it's just plain edge, so they can sharpen it without having to worry about serrations or anything. Because learning to sharpen a knife is part of the required skill set that they need to complete in order to earn that card. This is American made. It's 420 HC steel, which is fine. I mean, it's nothing special, but it's, you know, reasonable. And yeah, it was $1. So you can find these pretty regularly. This and the Gerber US1, which is a little bit larger and has sort of rubbery texture on it, but it's a similar idea. And I think there's a slightly larger version of this, the Ultralight LST. It's the same thing with just a little bit longer blade. You can find those pretty easily at the state surplus store. It's a common knife. A lot of people carry it on their keychains, forget about it, and then they try and get on a flight, and they get told to give it up. And since it's not expensive, they don't fuss too much about it or worry about trying to mail it home. They just surrender it to the TSA. And yeah, these are, you could easily dig around and find one of these at the state surplus store if you're in the Austin area and you want to go check it out. That's worth picking up for $1 for sure. One more. This is the Kershaw Ken Onion Leek. This is the 1660 CF. The CF is for carbon fiber. So yeah, it's got carbon fiber handle scales as opposed to just a steel handle. That's, our cat is meowing at me for some reason. Hello, cat. So yeah, normally the Leek is a frame lock model. This one is a liner lock because it's got scales on top of the liners. And I think it's a little bit thicker overall than a regular Ken Onion Leek. In addition to having a little bit different handle, this also has an upgraded blade steel. So the Ken Onion Leek is normally, the basic model is 14C28N, which is a Swedish steel made by Sandvik. It was originally a proprietary thing for Kershaw. And that's a perfectly fine steel. It's a traditional ingot formed steel, pretty well balanced. This is a little better. This is CPM 154. You know, a lot of you probably have knives that are in 154 CM, which is, you know, chemically the same composition as CPM 154, but it's made through a different process. This is the particle metallurgy version of 154 CM, which means it's going to be a little tougher and a little bit more consistent, have better edge stability, better edge retention, better toughness, you know, slightly better than that 154 CM. And you know, it's also a stainless steel. And this, I think, probably is kind of like the apex predator of Kershaw Leeks. This is probably about as good as you're going to find without getting into some kind of crazy custom thing. Yeah, made in the USA. So, you know, as I said, most of the Ken Onion Leeks are 14C28N, but then there's also some that are, you know, like this composite version. This has got 14C28N on the spine, and then that's braze welded to some CPM D2, which is also a particle metallurgy steel, but it's, I would prefer the CPM 154. For one reason, it's more stain resistant. You can see there's some spots on this one, some stains in this CPM D2. And the CPM 154 is also easier to sharpen. And it's a good steel. It's used in a lot of nice knives. Benchmade uses it on some of their models. Kershaw uses it on most of the launch model auto knives. See, CPM 154. Yeah, it takes a good sharp polished edge really easily. I like it. It's a good steel. Uh, yeah, that's about it. I didn't do really much in terms of size comparisons today, but let me just do one for you for this to give you a sense of how massive this Gerber Sumo is. So this is the Gerber Sumo, which absolutely dwarfs a Spyderco PM2. Here, camera's on a little bit of an angle, so a little distorted, but yeah, that's a big knife. And here's the, for comparison, here's that Benchmade Bailout too, which is also, full-sized knife, but not as big as the Sumo. All right, I think that's it for today. Thanks for watching.